The Omega died saving the Alpha King, but he refused to accept it. The wind howled like 1,000 lost spirits across the frozen plains surrounding the Alpha King's castle. Towering walls of black stone jutted into the stormy sky, each spire crowned with jagged ice. The kingdom had always seemed impenetrable, a fortress that defied time and war, yet tonight, even its massive gates trembled under the assault of enemies who had long coveted the throne. Inside the grand hall, torches flickered against the high walls, casting shadows that danced like restless spirits. The Alpha King, known across the lands for his unyielding strength and cold precision, stood at the center of the chaos. His eyes, the color of storm clouds, swept across the battlefield outside through the narrow slit of the windows. Soldiers shouted, arrows whistled past, and the roar of the enemy's siege engines shook the very ground. He did not flinch. To his subjects he appeared calm, unshakable, and invincible. But inside, a slow, unfamiliar knot of worry twisted in his chest. The Alpha King had faced countless enemies, conquered clans, and outlived treacherous allies, yet something about this attack felt different. A dark, unseen force moved through the night, more dangerous than any army. And then she appeared, the Omega. She came not as a herald or a knight, but as a shadow through the falling snow, moving with a quiet grace that belied the storm around her. Her hair, dark as midnight, whipped around her pale face, and her eyes held a fire that even the fiercest warriors had learned to fear. She was no stranger to danger, born into exile, gifted with a rare, almost supernatural resilience. Yet nothing could have prepared her for the moment when fate drew her to the Alpha King's side. He did not recognize her at first. Few had the courage to cross his path. Even fewer had the strength to survive it. But as she reached the outer gates, moving faster than any human should, he realized she carried something far more potent than mere bravery. In her hands was a vial glowing with an unnatural blue light, a warding elixir, forged to counter the cursed magic the enemy had unleashed. The Alpha King's instincts flared. He moved to intercept her, but it was too late. From the shadows, dark tendrils of magic, jagged and vicious, sprang toward him like the claws of a phantom beast. Soldiers screamed as the spell tore through the outer defenses. The Alpha King's sword clashed with the first wave of attackers, but he knew, with a cold certainty that struck deeper than any blade, that this was a trap. The Omega leapt into the path of the curse, raising the vial high. She muttered words in a language older than any kingdom, a chant that shimmered in the air like threads of light. The spell struck her first, wrapping her in a cocoon of crackling energy. Pain radiated from her very bones, yet she did not falter. The Alpha King's breath caught. For a man who had seen countless deaths, who had sharpened his mind against betrayal and bloodshed, the sight of her standing alone against the impossible made his chest tighten. The world seemed to slow as she absorbed the brunt of the curse, her body trembling, her fingers glowing with the blue light that fought the darkness. "Move!" he shouted, finally breaking his composure, rushing to her side. But even as he ran, he knew deep in the pit of his soul that her courage was not born from recklessness. It was born from love, or something nearly as powerful. Her eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, the storm outside seemed to pause. They were impossible eyes full of defiance, fear, and a strange, quiet sorrow. "You cannot stop this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the siege. It must pass through me. Only then will it leave you alive." He gritted his teeth. The Alpha King was no stranger to sacrifice. He had demanded it, commanded it, taken it without hesitation, but never for himself. Never had he witnessed someone willingly step into certain death for him. "No," he said, the single word cutting through the chaos like steel. "I will not let you." But his words were meaningless. Magic unlike anything the world had ever known consumed her. The energy shimmered, twisted, and then struck him in a sudden pulse, almost knocking him off his feet. Yet the Omega did not falter. She clutched the glowing vial tighter, her body glowing as if she were a star being born in the heart of a storm. And then, in a burst of blinding light, the curse shattered against her will. The enemy's magic recoiled, dissipating into the night. Soldiers cheered, arrows fell harmlessly to the ground, and the gates held. Victory had been won, but at a cost. The Alpha King ran to her as she collapsed. Her breath was shallow. Her hands, once strong, trembled weakly in his grasp. The glow faded from her body, leaving behind the quiet stillness of life fading. "You saved me," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "Do you understand? You saved me." Her lips curved into the faintest of smiles, pain etching every line of her face. "I could not let you fall," she whispered, her voice fragile but steady. "The prophecy you must," she coughed, a soft, heartbreaking sound. Her eyes, once fierce, now held only a quiet plea, a warning. "The shadow within your heart will awaken if you refuse to see me truly." Her head lolled slightly, and the Alpha King caught her fully in his arms. For a moment, the fortress around them disappeared. The world narrowed to the rhythm of her failing heartbeat and the weight of all the things he had never allowed himself to feel. Grief, fear, something like love. He shook her gently. "No, stay with me. You are not going anywhere." But she was already slipping away. Her hand pressed briefly to his chest, as if leaving a mark, a memory, a piece of herself that could survive without her body. "I trust you still, even now." And then she was gone. The Alpha King screamed, a sound that shook the stones of the fortress and echoed across the battlefield. Soldiers froze in shock, unsure whether to rush to him or give space to the man who had always seemed untouchable. He did not care. He had never cared for anyone in this way. Never had he known the sharp pain of loss so sudden, so complete. He rose from the floor, holding the emptiness where she had been. The wind howled louder, as if mourning with him. Snow fell over the battlefield, covering the traces of blood and magic alike. The Alpha King's mind raced. He had survived every war, outwitted every enemy, conquered every rival, yet he had never faced this, the death of someone who had chosen him over her own life. The fortress that had always been his power now felt hollow. Every corner of the castle, every torchlit hall, reminded him of her. He walked through the halls, his steps echoing like the tolling of a bell. Soldiers whispered behind closed doors, calling him mad, calling him broken, but he did not hear. His gaze was fixed on the horizon, on the dark forest where she had come from, on the shadows where she had given herself entirely for him. At night, he would go to the highest tower. He would look at the stars and feel a presence that was no longer of this world, a whisper in the wind, the faint glow of her magic, a heartbeat that was not his own. He refused to accept her death. Refused. And in that refusal, a fire began to stir. It was not vengeance, though that flared often in his veins. It was something older, deeper, a desire to undo what had been done, to find her in whatever world she had gone to, and to prove that death could not claim what had chosen him. Yet he knew, somewhere deep in his being, that the path he was about to walk would demand everything of him. Pride, power, even the very essence of his humanity would be tested, but he would not falter, not for the Omega who had saved him. Not for the light that had burned so briefly in the darkness. The castle slept uneasily that night. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, the walls held secrets far darker than the winter wind. The Alpha King stood alone in the tower, staring at the snow and shadows, and whispered into the cold night, "I will not let you go, not yet. I will find you, even if it takes every breath I have left." And far away, in the place between worlds, a faint pulse of magic shimmered in the darkness, a whisper of life that refused to fade completely, as if she were waiting for him to follow. The first step of his journey had begun. The castle was quiet now, but not with peace. Its silence was heavy, suffocating, filled with shadows that whispered of loss and fear. The battle was over. The enemy had been repelled. The The gates still held, but inside the Alpha King's world had shattered. The halls, once a place of order and command, seemed too vast, too empty. Every torch flickered with a memory of her. He walked through the corridors as if moving in a dream, his boots silent against the cold stone. The soldiers avoided his path, knowing better than to disturb him. Some whispered that he was cursed, that grief had taken root in his soul, making him dangerous. He did not hear them. His mind was elsewhere, trapped in the last moments with the Omega. He could still see her face, pale but radiant, glowing with the light of her magic as she absorbed the deadly curse meant for him. He could still hear her whispering words he did not fully understand, warning him of a shadow within his heart. And he could still feel the weight of her hand pressing against his chest, a final gift of trust before she slipped from the world of the living. "No," he muttered again, a word that had become his mantra. "You are not gone. You cannot be gone." The healers and mages of the castle had tried everything. They chanted, brewed elixirs, consulted the ancient texts. They even sought the help of the spirit seers, the ones who claimed to communicate with those who had crossed the veil. But all efforts failed. She was gone. And yet he refused to believe it. He began to walk the halls at night, searching for signs, for whispers, for the faint glow of her magic. The servants whispered of strange happenings, shadows that moved on their own, soft voices in empty corridors, a lingering warmth where she had once stood. But when he followed these signs, he found nothing tangible, nothing that could prove her presence. And yet, he felt her. In his quarters, he began to notice small things. A faint pulse of light under the floorboards where she had been. The scent of her hair lingering in the air despite the snowstorm outside. Even the sound of the wind through the towers seemed to carry her voice, soft and distant. The Alpha King's pride, which had never allowed him to show weakness, now battled with a new, more dangerous force: obsession. He spent hours in the archives, studying old magic, seeking ways to bring her back, to pierce the veil that separated life from death. Ancient scrolls spoke of forbidden rites, of journeys through shadowed realms, of bargains with spirits and demons alike. He devoured each word, driven by the memory of her sacrifice. And in the quiet moments when the candlelight trembled and the world felt still, he spoke to her as if she were still there. "I will find you," he said one night, voice low and unwavering. "No matter what it takes." The servants and guards had learned to keep their distance. Even the court mage, the one who had guided him through countless campaigns, approached with caution. "My lord," the mage said, voice hesitant, "you risk more than you know. This obsession, it can consume you. Magic of this kind is dangerous, and the dead cannot be tamed." "I do not care," the Alpha King said, his voice cold and final. "She gave her life for me. If I cannot see her again, then the world itself is meaningless." Days passed, and the castle became a place of strange phenomena. Shadows lingered where none should have been. Candles would light themselves in the middle of the night. The walls would echo with a soft, melodic whispering, a voice unmistakably hers, though the syllables were unfamiliar. The Alpha King began to chase these signs relentlessly. He roamed the battlements, speaking her name into the storm. "Omega," he whispered. "I will not let you go. I refuse." Some nights he thought he saw her, a figure at the edge of the woods just beyond the walls, moving with the same quiet grace he remembered. He would reach for her and she would vanish, leaving only a faint glow in the snow. Each glimpse drove him further into obsession, but he could not stop. He did not want to stop. His counselors began to fear for him. "He is losing himself," the court mage said quietly to the captain of the guard. "The grief, the obsession, it is changing him. The Alpha King is a man of discipline and power, but this is different. It is unnatural." The Alpha King himself felt the change, though he did not name it. At night, when he lay in his chambers, he dreamt of her. Not as she had been in life, but as a shimmering shadow, a half-light caught between worlds. She would call to him, sometimes with warmth, sometimes with warning. Sometimes she seemed angry at him, angry that he could not let her rest. One night he followed her apparition into the halls, his sword in hand, though he did not fully understand what he expected to fight. She led him to the great library, where ancient books of forbidden magic lined the walls. There, a single volume opened itself, pages fluttering until it landed on a passage about spirits bound by sacrifice, about omega spirits who linger in the veil between worlds. His heart thundered. The words spoke of hope and of danger. A spirit that refuses release may twist the hearts of the living, he read aloud, voice low. Those who cling too tightly to the departed may be consumed, body and soul. But he did not care. He would risk everything. Every ounce of his power, every breath, every part of himself, he would give to see her again. Days turned into weeks. The Alpha King became a shadow of his former self in the eyes of the court. He no longer held audience with the nobles, no longer rode with his knights. He spent every waking moment searching, studying and speaking to the empty halls as though she were there. And sometimes, when the moonlight hit the stone just so, he could almost touch her, feel the warmth of her hand on his cheek, hear her whisper in the wind. Yet the magic of her sacrifice was not done. In the nights when the wind was still, he would feel a faint pulse in the air, a reminder of the curse she had taken upon herself, a reminder that the danger had not fully passed. And sometimes, in the deepest shadows of the castle, he glimpsed a movement, a faint, flickering light that vanished when he approached. It was then that he began to understand. Her death had not freed her entirely. The Omega had become part of something larger, something that hovered between life and death. And if he could find her, he could bring her back, or lose himself entirely. The Alpha King's thoughts became consumed with possibilities. He imagined her spirit guiding him, teaching him to see the world differently, to feel as he had never felt. He imagined her anger at him for not understanding, for not letting her go. He imagined the moment he would finally reach her, wherever she waited, and speak the words he had never been able to say. I am yours, I see you, I will not fail you again. The castle, once a place of order and power, became a labyrinth of obsession. Servants spoke of doors that would open on their own, of books that fell from shelves, of whispers in the hallways that were neither wind nor voice. And always, always, the faint pulse of magic reminded him of her, the Omega who had saved him and left him broken in her absence. The Alpha King began to notice the first signs of change within himself. His dreams became more vivid, more dangerous. He felt shadows curling at the edges of his mind, echoing the prophecy she had whispered before she died. The shadow within your heart will awaken. He did not understand what it meant, but he felt its stirrings, a hunger for power, a craving to undo death, a restless force that mirrored his own obsession. And yet he did not fear it. He welcomed it, believing it would guide him back to her. One night, as he stood on the highest tower staring into the black forest beyond the castle walls, a movement caught his eye. There, among the snow and shadows, a figure moved with her grace. His breath caught. Could it be her? Could she truly have returned? He descended the tower in a frenzy, racing through the corridors, calling her name, heart pounding. But as he reached the outer gates, the figure vanished, leaving nothing but a faint shimmer in the cold night air. The Alpha King fell to his knees, clutching at the empty air where she had been. Rage, grief, and longing collided inside him. He refused to accept her death. He refused to let go. And in that refusal, he felt the first real stirrings of the shadow she had warned him about. A dark, powerful force that mirrored his obsession and grief. It was not yet fully formed, but he sensed its presence, and somehow, he understood that the path ahead would demand more from him than he had ever imagined. He rose, eyes burning with determination, and whispered into the night, I will find you. Even if I must walk through shadows, even if I must defy the laws of life and death itself, I will not lose you. Not to the world, not to fate, and not even to death. The wind howled back, as if acknowledging the promise. And somewhere in the darkness, the faint glow of magic shimmered, a heartbeat of life, waiting, watching, and whispering in the spaces between worlds. The castle, once a place of strength and certainty, now felt like a hollow shell. The corridors were long and dark, shadows stretching unnaturally across the stone floors, flickering with every torch. Outside, the snow had fallen into deep drifts, covering the land like a blanket of silence, but within the walls, the air thrummed with a tension that could not be named. The Alpha King walked alone through the halls, the weight of the Omega's absence pressing down on him like a physical burden. Each step echoed, each breath felt heavy, and every shadow seemed alive, moving just beyond the corner of his vision. The prophecy she had whispered haunted him constantly. The shadow within your heart will awaken. He did not yet understand its meaning, but he could feel the stirring of something dark and powerful within himself. Grief had opened a door he could not close. Obsession had fanned the flames. And now magic, the same force that had claimed her life, whispered to him in ways that made his blood run cold. The Alpha King had consulted the court mage, the only one who had knowledge of spirits and curses, but even the mage admitted limits. "My lord," the mage said, voice low, "the Omega's death was not simple. The curse she absorbed lingers in a space between life and death. She is caught in the veil, a spirit neither fully alive nor fully gone. To reach her, you will have to enter that space yourself, and not all who attempt it return unchanged." "I will go," the Alpha King said, his voice cold but firm. "If it is the only way to see her again, then I will risk everything. I will not leave her to this darkness." The mage shook his head, worry etched across his face. "The veil is dangerous. It tests the heart and mind. Only those who can surrender their fear, their pride, their control can survive it. You are strong, my lord, but you are not invincible." "I am stronger than any curse," he replied, and for the first time his eyes glimmered with something beyond grief, determination, raw and unyielding. That night, under a moon pale and cold, the Alpha King prepared for the journey. He donned his black armor, not as a symbol of conquest but as a shield against the unknown. He took his sword, though it was of little use in the spirit realm, and he carried with him the last token she had left, a small, glowing crystal that pulsed faintly with her energy. He stepped into the forest beyond the castle walls, the snow crunching beneath his boots. The world around him seemed to shift, the trees bending and twisting as if alive, branches reaching like hands toward him. The air grew cold, not the bite of winter, but the chill of the veil, the space between life and death, where spirits lingered and time had no meaning. He called her name, voice low, trembling with hope and fear. "Omega, I will find you. I will bring you back." For hours he wandered, following the faint pulse of her magic. The forest grew darker, the air heavier. Shadows moved in impossible shapes. At times he thought he saw her, glimpses of a figure flickering in the corner of his vision. Each time he reached for her, she vanished, leaving only a trace of light, a whisper of her presence. Then came the first real test. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall, cloaked in black, with eyes that glowed like embers. Its voice was like silk and steel, echoing in the frozen air. "Why do you come here, mortal king?" it asked. "This is not a place for the living." "I come for her," the Alpha King said, holding the crystal before him. "She is mine. She gave her life for me. I will not leave her here." The figure laughed softly, a sound that seemed to come from every direction at once. "Many have come before you. Pride, obsession, grief, they all lead here. Few return, and those who do are changed." "I do not care," the Alpha King said. "I will face whatever is necessary." The figure studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Then pass. But beware, the path tests the heart as much as the body. Darkness lies within, waiting to claim those who cannot endure." The Alpha King stepped forward, the world around him shifting again. Snow became mist. Trees became shadows. The ground felt unreal and the air hummed with a strange energy. Here, in this place between worlds, nothing was as it seemed. Every step he took felt like walking through water. Every sound was distorted, every light a trick of the mind. He called her name again, louder this time, and for the first time he felt her response. A faint warmth, a shimmer of blue light guiding him deeper into the darkness. Hours or perhaps moments passed. Time had no meaning here. He faced visions that tested him, images of her suffering, of enemies he had destroyed, of his own failures as a king. Shadows whispered doubts into his mind, taunting him, urging him to turn back, to leave her, to accept that she was gone. And then he saw her. The Omega stood in a clearing of light, her form shimmering, not fully solid, not fully gone. She looked at him with eyes that were both sorrowful and proud. She reached toward him, but her hand passed through his. "You cannot hold me," she said softly. "I am bound to this place. I exist between worlds now, and yet you must not lose yourself trying to save me." "I will not leave you," he said, voice breaking. I will not accept your death." "You are blinded by grief," she said. "The curse you seek to undo, it will consume you. Your heart, your shadow, it grows. You must face it before it is too late." Her words struck him like a blade. He had felt it already, a darkness stirring within, a shadow that mirrored his obsession and his refusal to let go. It whispered promises of power, of bending the laws of life and death, but it also whispered threats that if he continued, he might become what he fears most, a man ruled by shadow rather than will. "I do not care," he said. "If the shadow is part of me, then I will face it. I will not be denied." The Omega's light flickered, a wave of sadness passing over her features. "Then know this," she said. "To save me fully, you must surrender pride, you must accept fear, you must be willing to lose yourself to find me." He stepped closer, the crystal glowing brighter, illuminating the space between them. The air hummed, and the forest seemed to bend around his determination. "I will do whatever it takes," he said. A sudden surge of magic erupted from the ground. The shadow within him stirred, testing, probing. His vision blurred, and he saw images of a possible future, a throne of darkness, ruled not by justice or courage, but by obsession and grief. The Omega's face was there too, not alive, not dead, but trapped in eternal torment. "No," he roared, gripping the crystal tightly. "I will not let this happen. I will save you. I will." And then the figure of a beast emerged from the shadows. Not entirely physical, not entirely spirit. It was a guardian of the veil, a test for those who dared cross the boundaries between life and death. Its eyes glowed red, its claws sharp as obsidian, and its growl echoed in every corner of the mind. "You who cling to the dead," it said, voice like thunder, "do you not see what you risk? To bring her back is to invite the darkness fully into your soul. Are you ready to pay the price?" The Alpha King did not flinch. "I am ready," he said, voice steady. "I will pay any price to see her again." The Guardian lunged, and the Alpha King met it with his sword, striking not to kill but to prove his resolve. Shadows and light clashed, a storm of magic and will. Pain surged through him, testing his limits. The shadow inside him rose, whispering, urging him to give in, to claim power, to reshape the world, to bring her back. But he held fast. He held onto the memory of her sacrifice, the warmth of her hand, the trust in her eyes. He held onto the belief that love was not possession, that grief was not weakness. And slowly the Guardian recoiled, recognizing the strength of his heart. Finally, in the midst of the swirling shadows, a calm descended. The Omega's light shone brighter, clearer. She reached toward him, and this time their hands almost touched. "You have come far," she said softly. "But the journey is not over. The darkness within you, it must be faced. Only then can you truly save me, or lose yourself entirely." The Alpha King stared at her, chest heaving, eyes blazing. He had faced armies, traitors, curses, and death itself. But this test of heart and shadow was unlike anything he had ever encountered. And yet he would not turn back. Not now, not ever. He reached for her and the space between them shimmered, threatening to tear apart, a thin veil between worlds stretching to its limit. The Omega's gaze held his, filled with both warning and hope. The veil trembled around him. The world between life and death stretched like a frozen ocean, dark and endless, lit only by the faint shimmer of the Omega's pulse. The Alpha King's boots made no sound, though each step seemed heavier than the last. Every breath he drew felt like fire, and yet he pressed forward. This was no battlefield he had faced before. Here, his swords, armies, and crowns meant nothing. Only his heart, his will, and his courage could guide him. The Omega stood at the edge of a vast, shadowed plain. Her form was both there and not, a flickering image of life caught between realms. Her eyes, still filled with quiet sorrow and courage, met his. "You've come," she said softly. "I knew you would, but now the trial begins." He swallowed hard. He had already faced darkness in himself, the shadow she had warned about stirring, whispering promises and threats, testing his pride, his anger, his grief. Now he had to face it fully, and he did not hesitate. "I will face whatever is needed," he said. "I will not lose you again. I will not be ruled by fear or grief or the shadow within me. I am yours in every way that matters." Her light shimmered brighter, a soft glow like dawn breaking in a frozen land. "Then you must surrender," she said. "Not to me, but to yourself. Only when you face the darkness without trying to control it, only then can you save me." The ground beneath him shifted. Shadows rose, forming twisted shapes, creatures of despair, echoes of his own regrets, memories of every life lost under his command, every mistake he had ever made. They circled him, whispering, clawing at his mind. "Give in," they hissed. "You cannot succeed. Let grief consume you. Let anger rule. Claim what is lost and all else will follow." He did not falter. He closed his eyes and let the shadows strike him, probing his fears, his pride, his pain. Every memory of the Omega's sacrifice, every whisper of her trust and courage, burned within him. He did not fight the darkness with force. Instead, he opened his heart to it, acknowledging the fear, the rage, the grief, and in doing so he faced it fully. The shadow recoiled. It tested him again, one final time, forming a mirror in the void, his own face twisted by obsession, grief, and rage. The reflection spoke, voice dark and low. "You cannot succeed. You will lose yourself in this quest." "I know," the Alpha King said, voice steady, resolute. "And yet I move forward, not to control, not to possess, but to honor her. To save her, I must first save myself from becoming the shadow I fear." Light burst from the crystal in his hand. The shadow screamed, wailing as it dissipated into nothingness. The void around him seemed to shiver, and then, in the midst of the silence, the Omega stepped closer. "You have done it," she whispered. "You have faced the shadow within your heart. You are stronger because you chose to see rather than control. You have allowed love to guide you, not obsession." He lowered the crystal, trembling. "I could not lose you," he admitted. "I could not bear it. Every moment without you, I felt hollow, broken. But I see now, it is not my strength alone that can save you. It is our bond, our trust, our courage together." Her light intensified, filling the space between them with warmth and life. He reached for her, and for the first time he could touch her hand. Not a ghostly flicker, not a shadow of what once was, but the pulse of life itself. "Alpha," she breathed, her voice trembling with emotion. "You came, you risked everything for me." "I will always come," he said, pressing his forehead to hers. "Even if the world tries to take you from me again, I will find you. I will never let you face darkness alone." The veil around them shuddered, reacting to the union of courage and trust. The shadowed realm began to dissolve, the frozen ocean melting into light. The Omega's spirit, freed from the curse she had absorbed, began to shimmer with color and warmth, becoming whole again. "You are free," the Alpha King said softly. "And so am I. We are bound not by grief, but by trust, by love, by the choices we make." The realm of shadows receded, replaced by the warmth of dawn. The forest outside the castle glimmered under the first light, snow melting into streams of silver, birds singing unseen songs of life returning. The Alpha King felt the weight lift from his chest, a heavy burden replaced by a quiet, enduring hope. Yet even in this moment of triumph, he knew the world would never be the same. He had glimpsed the edges of life and death, faced the darkness within himself, and survived. He had learned that power alone could not save anyone. Only courage, compassion, and love could overcome the trials of the heart. The Omega looked at him, her eyes full of warmth and mischief, a reminder that life persisted even after suffering. "You have changed," she said. "Not because of magic or swords or crowns, but because you faced yourself." He smiled, a rare, genuine smile, the first since her death. "And I will continue to change," he said, "for you, for us, for the kingdom we protect together." Together they returned to the castle. The halls no longer felt empty, shadows no longer whispered. The pulse of her magic lingered, not as a reminder of loss, but as a testament to the bond they had forged, one that death could not sever, one that fear could not control, one that would endure beyond the world of men and kings. The Alpha King restored the defenses of the castle, not as a tyrant, but as a guardian who had seen the fragility of life and the power of trust. His subjects noticed the change in him, a man still strong, still commanding, but softened by grief, tempered by love, and enlightened by the trials he had faced. The court mage approached, bowing slightly. "You have returned her and yourself. Few have the courage for such a journey, my lord. Few can confront both loss and the shadow within and emerge whole." The Alpha King nodded, eyes on the Omega, who stood at his side, radiant with life and spirit. "It was not courage alone," he said. "It was trust. It was love. It was the choice to see clearly, even in darkness. I would face it again if I had to, but I would not do it alone." The Omega smiled, leaning into his side, a small but powerful reminder that even in a world of kings, curses, and shadows, the heart could guide stronger than any sword or spell. Days passed. The castle returned to life, the people sensing a shift in their ruler. The Alpha King's shadowed grief had transformed into a quiet, enduring strength. He did not forget what had been lost, but he honored it in every decision he made, every life he protected, and every moment he shared with the Omega. One evening, as the sun set over the frostbitten plains, casting long golden rays over the castle towers, the Alpha King stood atop the highest battlement. The Omega was at his side, her hand in his, her presence no longer a whisper but a living warmth. "I felt you waiting," he said softly, voice carried by the wind. "I could feel you even when I thought you were gone." "And I felt you too," she said, resting her head against his shoulder. "Your heart, your courage, your willingness to face the darkness. It brought me back. Not just to life, but to you." He looked out over the horizon, the kingdoms beyond bathed in the golden light of evening. "The world is vast, full of danger and shadows," he said, "but we have faced what few dare to confront. We have proven that even in darkness, light endures. Even in death, love endures." She smiled, warmth in her eyes, and he felt the pulse of life, the rhythm of hearts in sync, the strength of bond unbroken by fate. The Alpha King knew one truth above all: the trials they had faced were not the end, but a beginning. A beginning forged in courage, sacrifice, and love. A bond that could not be broken by any curse, any enemy, or any shadow. And far away in the whispering winds, a faint shimmer lingered, a reminder that even in a world of kings, queens, curses, and shadows, love could light the darkest path. Together they stepped forward, hand in hand, into the warmth of the rising sun, ready to face whatever the world might bring.